Earlier this year, I got this custom bike handed to me, and now the time has come to build it up. Because this bike is so rare, I kind of went a little bit overboard on all the pieces that I collected for this bike. But you know what? That's what dream builds are all about. I want to give you a little preview of some of the pieces that we're going to put on this bike because some of them are just straight up ridiculous. Inside this box is a set of titanium cranks made by Cane Creek, and when I first got this box, I actually thought it was empty. But when you open it up, it's the lightest, strongest cranks that you can get your hands on. Next up, we've got Hayes Dominion brakes, which are pretty common on most bikes, and they're actually on every single bike I own at this point. But something special about these brakes is that they come in purple, and that's gonna set the tone for today's build. Let's see what else is in the box. Deity Supervillain pedals. These pedals just came out. They are brand new, and they match my brakes. Maybe you're starting to see a little bit of a pattern for them now. But the most ridiculous piece that's gonna go on this bike wouldn't fit in this box. Light bicycle rims laced up to Industry 9 hubs. This is my dream wheel set right here. A big shout out to Matt Gilman for putting these together for me. These are crazy light and everything that I've ever wanted out of a wheel set. I'm honestly not really sure where to start with this bike. I'm so excited for every single part that I picked out on this bike. I don't really know where to start, but let's get it in the stand and see what we can do with it. Do you know what this frame is? It's called a street trials bike, and it's meant for doing big bunny hops and manuals and gaps and all kinds of other fun stuff. And that's my background as a bike rider. I was a trials rider originally, and then I adapted all those skills to mountain biking. Trials is basically just really advanced bike handling, and it works so well on a mountain bike. And that's what I try to do, is take a lot of the basics from trials and move them into mountain biking. Now, the thing about trials is kind of a bummer is that people see the most advanced riding and they instantly write off the sport and say, that's not for me at all. But what we do on our channel when we work on the basics of bike handling is actually the same basics that you would start with on a trials bike. But you might find it easier because we do it on a bike that has suspension or 29-inch wheels. But actually, the basics are the same no matter what you ride. So if you've learned how to pedal up onto something, how to balance in place, you could actually do a little bit of trials already. I think I'm going to start at the front of the bike and then just work my way back, which means we can begin with an inspired street trials fork. This is sort of the gold standard of forks for street trials bikes, and it also matches the color of the bike, which is pretty convenient. I'm going to pair this with an Industry 9 zero stack headset just to keep things nice and tidy here. One thing that makes this fork a little bit different from every other fork is that the inside of it is threaded. So the top cap actually has a thread in it as well, but it also has this little hole right here. And this hole right here makes it so you can run your front brake through the middle of the fork. That way it's easier to do bar spins and tail whips with this bike. As for the handlebars on this bike, if you've been watching this channel for long enough, you know that every single street trials bike I put together also goes with a Deity high side bar. This is an 80mm rise bar, which is just right for street trials, 760mm width. This is actually the exact same size and shape that you'd get on an inspired bike, but the Deity bars, well, these are made for freeride mountain biking and dirt jumping, and they're built to withstand some pretty heavy hits. So putting handlebars like this on my bike, I absolutely trust, and I've been running them for long enough with no issues. Deity high sides, these are the move. I guess we put the brakes on next. So I'm gonna run Hayes Dominion brakes on this bike, and I've got these on pretty much every single bike I ride, and for good reason. They work really, really well out of the box. They've got good modulation, the lever feel is really good, and they come in a couple different colors, including purple, which is gonna be a recurring theme with this bike. Purple is gonna be the accent color for this bike, and I wanna give it kind of an ultraviolet kind of theme, and these brakes are perfect for exactly that. Now I'm gonna put a spec list for all the parts that go on this bike down in the description of this video, and there's gonna be affiliate links if you wanna support the channel and also get those parts for yourself. But for the Hayes Dominion brakes, I also have a 15% off discount code. So if you wanna get a set of these brakes for yourself, you'll also get them a little bit cheaper than everybody else. And honestly, I've got them on all of my bikes, not just trials bikes. I've got them on all of my mountain bikes as well. These brakes are legit and definitely worth it if you haven't tried them already. The last piece to the puzzle up front here is this brand new set of Deity MegaTac grips. Now these actually just came out, and they're a super thick diameter of grip, which is kind of the opposite from what most trials riders use. Most trials riders will run a really thin grip here. Some people even use like road bike tape, but I've been having a lot of good luck with thicker grips lately, and these just came out. So we're gonna test out the Deity MegaTac grips. Let's move on to the center of the bike. We've got the front end mostly sorted by this point, so now I'm gonna add another little flourish of purple with this Deity seat collar, and I'm also gonna add in a pivotal seat post and seat. This is a little bit higher quality than the plastic trial seats that you usually get, and it just looks cooler because it's got a little BMX flair to it. So I'm gonna throw this on, and then we can move into the bottom bracket. I feel like I might actually be able to cut off about a ½ inch from the top here if I wanna get extra rowdy with this frame. But for now, I'm just gonna leave it as is, and we can see how it works when the wheel is in here. Now for the moment that I've honestly been waiting for a super long time. I'm gonna put these titanium cranks on this bike, which is arguably the best thing that I'm gonna put on this bike, other than maybe the wheel set that's coming. But I've never had a pair of titanium cranks like this before, and I know that these are the ones that all the top riders use, so I'm pretty fired up to have a pair of my own. We can't put any kind of sprocket on this crank either. We have to do something a little bit special, and because this is a trials bike, we're gonna use something called a bash ring. Now a bash ring is cool because you have the chainring on one side, which is 22 teeth for this bike, and it also has a plate on the outside, which is the bash ring part of it. So this way you can pedal safely and then hit this part on concrete, on rocks, on logs, and not have to worry about anything. And these two pieces actually fit perfectly together to totally keep this bike safe. The last little bit of flourish that I'm gonna have for this bike outside of the brakes and the seat collar here is a set of Deity Supervillain pedals. Now these pedals just came out, and this is what they look like. I run Deity T-Max on most of my other bikes, but these are brand new. They've been tested for the last couple years by the Deity team riders, and I'm fired up. I think this is gonna be the perfect addition to this bike. Now comes the part of this bike build that I'm the most excited for. I mean, sure, putting titanium cranks on the bike was pretty cool, and brand new Deity pedals, 100%. But what I'm gonna put on this bike next is the part that I'm the most excited about, and for a number of different reasons. I have in my hands a wheel set here that has carbon rims, my very first ever carbon rims that I've ever put on any bike that I've owned. In addition to that, they're laced up to Industry 9 Hydra hubs. I have these on all of my trials bikes because they have really high engagement and they work flawlessly for me. But most important, and what makes these so special, is that my friend Matt built these wheels for me. Now Matt is such an interesting person because not only is he an incredible mechanic and wheel builder, he's also a trials rider. On top of both of those things, he's blind. So if trials wasn't hard enough, imagine being able to ride trials without the ability of sight. Matt has all of my respect, and I'm so proud that I get to ride wheels that he built. Thanks, Matt. Now, because these carbon rims took a long time to get here and I want to take good care of them, I'm going to do a few things to make sure that they stay in good condition. The most important thing is using a foam insert. This is called Rim Pact, and this is going to go inside my tire to make sure that I don't bottom out and smash the carbon rims at any point while I'm riding. On top of that, I'm also going to run the Continental Air King tires. These are the Danny McCaskill signature tires. So this combination with a thick sidewall and a foam insert should keep my rims pretty safe.
2 hours later.
Okay, it took a little bit longer than I expected to get the rim packs installed here. It was a really tight fit with these Continental tires and these light bicycle rims, but after enough struggle, I finally got them in here and we're good to go. The tubeless sealant is holding just fine, and we should be good to move on to the next phase in getting this installed in the bike. Quick thing I have to do is drop some disc brakes on here, and then we can work on getting this drivetrain installed on the bike. We're actually pretty close to getting this bike put together so that I can finally give it a quick test ride. One thing that's really interesting about this frame in particular is that it's built specifically for a 203mm rotor. Most street trials bikes come with a 180, and then you can use an adapter to bump it up to 203 if you want to get the maximum braking power. But this is the first frame that I'm aware of that just starts at 203. So we're going to have a huge rotor on the back of this bike, and I think I'm actually going to stick with the 180 in the front. I feel like these rotors look extra large just because I'm running a 24-inch wheel, so having this 203mm rotor makes it take up most of the wheel. But if there's anything that's going to stop this back wheel in place, it's definitely this rotor. You know what, just for fun, let's weigh this and see how much this wheel weighs just on its own. 4.83 pounds which is equivalent to 77 ounces, which is 2.19 kilograms. That's pretty ridiculous for one wheel. I'll take it. Now that we've got our wheels dialed in and ready to go, the last thing we need to do is put on this rear cog and dial in the drivetrain. So I have a 16-tooth chainring, which leaves me with a 22-16 gear ratio, which is pretty common for a 24-inch street trials bike. It's pretty light by all other standards, but for street trials, it's the perfect combination of being able to pedal, but still being able to do things like pedal kicks and all the other trials moves that we like to do. So I'm gonna put this on here and I'm gonna make sure that I get the chain line just right with the little single speed kit that I have to make sure that it's in the middle so that my chain line right here is straight. But the other thing that I'm going to add in here is something called a chain tensioner. This chain tensioner actually bolts onto the bottom of the bike right here and acts as kind of like a derailleur would on a mountain bike where it keeps the chain tight. When you don't have horizontal dropouts here, you have this through axle, you need something to keep tension on the chain. And so this little device right here is going to do exactly that. Now we've put a lot of thought into this drivetrain, the gear ratio, what hub we're going to use, how we're going to keep the chain tensioned. But the most important thing to pull it all together is the chain that I'm using. This is the Z1 EHX chain from KMC, and this is the chain that every street trials rider uses, as far as I know. It's the right combination of being strong enough, yet not too heavy that it's just complete overkill. And this one's worked for pretty much everybody out there. Everyone seems to really trust this chain, and so do I. Oh, well, here's a fun one. Turns out that although the spacing for this hub fits this fork just fine, it's a 110 spacing, it actually needs to have a non-boost hub shell to fit the brakes with the disc tab on here. So what's happening right now is this disc brake rotor is actually rubbing on the disc brake mount of the fork. So I need to replace this hub shell right in here, which means that I actually have to completely replace this wheel and have it rebuilt. So in the meantime, I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna tidy up all the other things that I can. I've got my drivetrain pretty much sorted out here, but I need to tidy up these brake lines and get them just right. And there's one other thing I need to do, and this is so minor, but when you're doing a dream build, you have to do all these little details. So this seat right here actually has some gold stitching in it, and the color palette for this bike is black, white, and purple. So gold is a no-go. So what I'm gonna do while I'm waiting for this new hub to show up, I'm gonna take a Sharpie and I'm gonna Sharpie in all of the gold thread that's here on this saddle. That way we can keep our color palette in check. But the good news for you is that thanks to the magic of editing, all we need to do to change this hub is snap our fingers. And just like that, we've got a brand new wheel. Big thanks to my buddy Dylan for helping me build this. Actually, he did all the work. I just gave him the hubs and he made it work. We have been waiting for a long time to get this bike all together, and now we have the final piece before we can go out and test it. So I'm gonna throw this front wheel on and it's go time. So this is the part where we're supposed to stare at it, right? I don't know. I think we should give it a proper first ride. Oh, whoops. We forgot to weigh it. Let's find out how much this weighs. 24.25. Not bad. How do I know this bike is legit? I'm already starting to pick battles with ledges around town. I just completed a little battle on a manual line, and I'm sure it's the first of many that we're gonna do with this bike. Oh! It's sparking something within me that's getting me excited about pushing my limits a little bit more on this bike than I maybe would have, and that's exciting.
Dude,
We'll take it.
that was a battle. First try.
This bike manuals so well. I just don't. That was a pretty good test ride. If you've ever wanted to try out street trials for yourself, or if you're just getting into it, this playlist right here is a great place to start. Go check it out.